else. So, when it all comes down to it, the real problem that these kinds of units have is that without personal investment, they're essentially doomed to hit that bottleneck and fail eventually. And even with investment, more often than not, you're going to get more value using that investment elsewhere. And I don't think I really need to say this, but that's not a good thing for their super hyper-carry characters like Phainon or Himiko Nova. Like I mentioned earlier, these characters basically have a hard cap on how strong they can actually be. The entire value of these characters is that they themselves are going to be what carries you to clear a stage, but because it's all on them, these units are basically ones that simply can't age well. Being honest, it's not really a question of if you need to invest further, and more of a question of when. Like the moment that their personal numbers stop keeping up, well, that's it. They most likely won't get new teammates to help them, they most likely won't get content catered around them, and they most likely won't get new things that might give them their edge back like when they first released. And compared to literally every other modern team the game has, where they're all cohesive and each character is one part of a whole, they just don't have that same potential to function long term that those other teams do. Like, let's be real here, take Phainon's best team right now at E0 S1 investment and compare that to Castarese's best team at the same investment, and one is struggling while the other isn't. So yeah, when you look at these characters like Phainon and Himiko Nova, they do look super strong, and they actually were in the case of Phainon and are currently in the case of Himiko. But with that said, the way their kits are designed essentially puts them in a spot where they are set up to fail in the long run. Remember, this game is changing constantly. What's at the top of the meta today probably won't be 6 months from now. So when you've got characters that can't improve beyond their own dupes, well, yeah, that's a problem because it's not really about how strong a character is right now, it's about how well they can keep up as the game changes. Teams that have the ability to grow over time are generally going to be more successful, at least in my eyes, and teams that aren't, well, we all know what happened to Phainon.
So Fleur put out a video about a week ago that was really interesting, talking about the problems with Phainon. Now, the thing that I think is really interesting is that a lot of the points that Fleur makes are really valid about Phainon specifically, but he likens a character like Himiko Nova to a character like Phainon, which I do not think is the most accurate way to represent a character like Himiko Nova because of the way that she inherently functions comparatively to a character like Phainon. Now, a lot of people say like, oh, E2 Himiko is the same as like E2 Phainon. I would dare what I say that I think that a character like E2 Himiko is very similar to a character like E2 Acheron in the way that the character actually functions within the team unit. Now, in this video, there's a portion of this video where Fleur basically talks about how one character dealing all the damage isn't going to cut it in the long term, which I personally agree with. A character like Phainon isn't going to do that. But when you liken a character like Himiko Nova to a character like Phainon, I do not believe that this is the case. Now, if we were to take a look at some of his best teams, right? If we were to come over to here and we were to look at a character like Phainon, who respectively is very, very strong, but if we were to come over to here and look at his teams, some of his best teams, right? We have like with Saridra and Sunday, and then if you were to run Sustainless, this is like some of the best teams with Phainon, Saridra, you have Cyrene and Sparkle, or you're just using like this team comp where you're essentially using no sustains, or even a team comp like this, right? These teams, their goal is to hyper buff Phainon, and the way that his kit works is that whenever you use a buff to buff him, it builds up the stacks for his ultimate, which allows him to enter his ultimate state, and then essentially all the other teammates are wiped off the field, and then it's just him versus the enemy in like an Elden Ring 1v1, and then
I am Melania, Blade of Mikola. And I have never known defeat.
and he goes to work against some of these bosses. Now, the thing is, his multipliers are really good, especially when you get them at like E2 and stuff like that. But the problem is that if you're to compare him to a character like Himiko Nova and you look at her teams, the problem is that if you look at Phainon's teams, most of the characters in his team, like except for Saridra, none of them are actually dealing damage with their skill or their ultimate. It's pretty much just their basic attack, which is dealing damage, right? But if you're to look at a Himiko Nova team, almost every single character in this team is dealing damage, right? So you have more than X Blade. Yeah, sure. Trailblazer is basically doing pea shooter damage, but kind of damage. I'd say Welt, if you look at a like pie chart, I'd say Himiko Nova is doing like maybe 60 to 70% of the damage, and then you have a character like Endblade doing like 20%, 20 or 30, and then, or maybe you have him doing like 20%, and then you have Welt doing 10%, and then if you have a buffer, you know, the numbers can change if you were to use Sunday in a sustainless comp. But if you use like with a sustain, right, Ho is basically doing nothing. So you have these two characters dealing damage, and then Himiko Nova dealing damage. Now, the reason why I think that this likening of Himiko Nova and Phainon is not accurate is because Phainon's teams, again, according to this video, which is this point, the one unit isn't enough, is that if you're to look at Caster's teams or Acheron teams or even the follow-up teams with Asheville, all those characters are dealing damage. Even in the, which he talks about in this video, he actually mentions a character like Evernight. Evernight, in this case, can also, you can run her in teams where she deals her own damage, right? Separate from casters. The difference between this team and a Phainon team is that, like in a caster's team, you have Casters, which is the premium team, Casters, Evernight, Cyrene, and then Hyacinth, right? All these characters are dealing damage. Now, if you're to look at the best Himiko Nova teams, every single character in this team, except for if you were to use Ho, all of them are dealing damage. Now, yes, sure, you're not going to have characters like a Evernight dealing damage like that in this Himiko Nova team, but you still have a character like Mordenax Blade or even Welt dealing a significant chunk of damage. Now, if you were to include all, like, let's just say your main damage dealer like Phainon having their SIG and Himiko Nova having their SIG, if you're to run Mordenax Blade with Welt and then Himiko Nova with her signature weapon, you're getting 102% defense down on enemies when you have all the debuffs down. So not only if you're to use Mordenax Blade and Welt, if you're to use his ultimate and Mordenax Blade and get all their stuff set up, they would still be dealing like 70% defense reduction, because the enemies would be 70% defense reduced, which is still a significant chunk of damage. Like, normally enemies have, let's just say, 100% defense. If you're removing 70%, that means they only have 30% of their defense up, right? Which means that these two characters are still doing a significant amount of damage to those enemies who are defense reduced. So not only are they debuffing the enemies so that Himiko Nova can deal a lot of damage, but they're also buffing themselves by reducing the defense, which is very significant. So in a team like this, compared to a Phainon team, this team is doing way more damage, and so to say that Himiko Nova and Phainon are very similar or the same type of character is just not true. I would say that she's more in line with a character like Acheron. Now, I wanted to bring up this one point from this video, which I thought was like so on point, and I'm so glad that someone like Fleur brought this up, which I'm gonna find this point in this video because it's just so true. I'm gonna let you guys listen to it, and I want to talk about it before we kind of end off this video.
Catered towards certain things, well, that means when you're investing everything into one specific character to get your clear, that same clear is going to be directly affected by whatever type of content or team is currently being shielded by the game. I do feel like I have to bring this up relatively frequently, but again, we literally have enemies in the game right now that take 50% reduced damage unless they're attacked by elation damage specifically. And like,
see, now that is something that I just it's just so ridiculous because, and I made a video about this a long time ago, which is talking about the problem with having multiple in-game modes, is that now we're at a point where we have 3 in-game modes, and then at the final stage of the in-game modes, you now need to have 3 different teams for each in-game mode. So that means you need to have a total of, let's just say, if you were to have different teams doing different things, you would have to have 9 different teams for a total of 3 game modes. It used to be you needed to only have 2, 4, 6 different teams, so you need a total of 3 more extra teams to clear these new game modes, right? And so with that, the problem that you run into is now not only do you have to match elements, which is also talked in this video as far as for, like, if you look at a Himiko Nova team, you have fire, imaginary, and then you have physical or whatever. But if you're to look at, like, let's just say an Elation team, or a like Caster's team, right, or an Evernight, or even an Asheville team, right, there's a little bit of element diversity, where it's like not only do you have to bring the right element, but you also now have to bring the right like team archetype to deal damage to enemies, because it's like, hey, by the way, if you're not using Elation characters like this, you deal 50% less damage. Now that's something that I think is just so bogus in HSR, and I don't know why they do that, but I just wanted to point this out and bring this up because I think this is really important. But this video by Fleur is so good. I would highly recommend you guys give it a watch. My only disagreement with this is likening a character like Himiko Nova to a character like Phainon. But honestly, I think Phainon's problems are like really bad, because it's like, I have played with E2 Phainon, and it's like, my god, like when he exits that ultimate state, it is so horrible, unless if your teammates are like super fast, where they can go like an insane amount of times before the enemy goes. But now enemies are so fast, because you have characters like Silver Wolf level 99 and stuff like that, or like Evanescia, where they go up really quickly, and so having enemies that are also really fast sucks. So I think that's also where like a character like Phainon really suffers, is that he also suffers because this new content is tailored to counter new characters. And if you have new characters that are insanely fast, well, the problem is that now you have to speed tune your old characters to be faster than the new enemies. And a lot of the times the newer characters or the newer enemies are speed tuned to match the hyper fast Elation characters, so that also builds a problem. And so what happens is, if you run these sustainless teams, now you're and that's why a character like Himiko Nova is so good, is because she can act outside of her turn, similar to like DOT, how it can be detonated outside of its like initial damage. Is that Himiko Nova, with her assist skills, essentially allows her to deal damage outside of her turn, which means that you don't necessarily have to speed tune Himiko. It's just that you need to make sure that your teammates are dealing damage as well. So there's just like so many factors where it's like, I understand why Phainon is like not in a good spot, because of like so many other factors. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I yapped a bunch, and I literally like came out of retiring from recording videos because I thought like this video was so interesting. So I'll pin this video down in the description below, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.